Good morning. You may have seen that I've got chapters 15 through 19 about Wayside School Gets a Little Stranger. But for those of you who never got the first 15 chapters, I'm going to catch you up. Not all today, but I'm going to read chapter 1 and then you'll be able to follow. So this is, title page, a very funny book. Wayside School Gets a Little Stranger by Louis Sekar and illustrated by Joel Schick, but there's not really a whole lot of illustrations. So Louis Sekar, he's written quite a few books, and one of them that you might have read or you might have heard of is Holes, and so we're just going to continue. He's going to really amaze you. This is the most off-the-wall book I've ever read. And so, chapter 1 will be an explanation. We might be able to get to chapter 2, but we're just going to see. Here are a couple of kids just going to school. Number 1, explanation. For 243 days, a lonely sign hung on the front of the old school building. Wayside School, closed for repairs. On some days, a child would come, look at the sign, and then sadly walk away. Or else a child would come, look at the sign, stand on her head, and then sadly walk away. Did you need to stand on your head to read that? I bet not. Louis watched them come and go, but he never said hi to them. He hid when they came. It was his job to repair the school. Louis used to be the yard teacher at Wayside School. He passed out the balls and played with the kids at recess and lunch. And when the school closed, the children were sent to other schools, horrible schools. No two kids were sent to the same school. Louis was afraid he'd cry if he talked to them. But he worked hard for 242 days. He pushed and pulled and shoveled and mopped. He never left the building. At night, he slept on the couch in the teacher's lounge on the 12th floor. Some days it seemed hopeless. The worst part was the smell. He often had to run and stick his head out a window to get a breath of fresh air, but whenever he felt like quitting, he thought about those poor kids stuck in those horrible schools, and he just worked harder. And at last, 243 days later, the school was ready to open. Well, almost ready. There was one little problem. Suddenly, from somewhere inside the building, or maybe just inside his head, Louis heard a loud moo. He put his hands over his ears and he said, "I don't hear it, I don't hear it, I don't hear it," until the mooing stopped. He had scrubbed and polished every inch of Wayside School. There were no cows anywhere. He was sure of it. Still, every once in a while he heard something go moo. Or at least he thought he did. He took the sign off the door. But before you enter, you should know something about Wayside School. Wayside School is a 30-story building with one room on each floor, except there is no 19th story. Mrs. Jules teaches the class on the 30th story. Miss Zarves teaches the class on the 19th story. There is no Miss Zarves. Understand? Good. Explain it to me. "Louis!" someone shouted. He turned to see a red and blue overcoat running toward him. "Hi, Sherry," he said. He couldn't see her face, but he knew she had to be somewhere inside that coat. Sherry jumped into his arms. "I bet you're glad to be back," said Louis. "You bet," said Sherry. "Now I can finally get some sleep." All around the playground, old friends were getting back together. "Hi, old pal," said John. "Hey, good buddy," said Joe. "Bebe!" yelled Calvin from one side of the playground. "Calvin!" shouted Bebe from the other. They ran and smashed into each other. "Hi, Eric. Good to see you," said Eric. "Hey, good to see you too," said Eric. "Oh, look, there's Eric. Hi, Eric. Hi, Eric. Hi, Eric. Hi, Eric." Even Kathy said hello to everybody. "Hey, Big Ears," she said to Myron as she slapped him on the back. "What's happening, Smelly?" she asked Damien, not Dameron. "You didn't take a bath for 243 days, did you?" "Hi, Allison. Did you get uglier while you were away? Or were you always this ugly and I just forgot?" "Nice sweater, Kathy," said Allison, who always tried to say something nice. Kathy moved on to Terrence. "I'm sure glad to see you, Terrence," she said. "You are?" asked Terrence. "Yeah," said Kathy. "I thought you'd be in jail by now." Todd came running across the playground. "Hi, Todd," shouted Sherry right in Lewis's ear. Todd kept running. "Hey, Todd," called Jason. "Good to see you." "Hi, Todd," called Myron and DJ, but Todd didn't answer. He just kept running until he reached the school building, and then he kissed Wayside School. Out of all the schools Todd had been sent to, the very worst one. It was awful. The first thing he had to do every morning was... Oh, wait a second. You already know, because Todd was sent to your school. We do have time for Chapter 2. Chapter 2, A Message from the Principal. Damien hurried up the stairs. He couldn't wait to see Miss Jules, his favorite teacher in the whole world. But the 30th floor was a lot higher up than he remembered, even if there was no 19th. By the time he got there, his legs hurt, his side ached, and he had a blister on the back of his ankle where it rubbed against his sneaker. He stumbled into the room and collapsed on the floor. "Hi, Miss Jules," he gasped. "Hi, Damien. Welcome back," said Mrs. Jules. Damien looked up at her. Something seemed different about her, but he wasn't sure what it was. "Oh, Damien, would you do me a favor?" she asked. "Sure," said Damien. "I left my pencil in the office," said Mrs. Jules. "Would you mind going down and getting it for me?" "No problem," said Damien. "It's yellow," said Mrs. Jules, "and it has a point at one end and a red eraser at the other." Damien got to his feet and headed down the stairs. One by one, the other children staggered into the classroom, huffing and puffing. They were all out of shape. Still, they were very excited to be back in Mrs. Jules' class. Shouts of joy could be heard from every corner of the room. Mrs. Jules held up 2 fingers. All the children became quiet. Joy stopped shouting. Mrs. Jules told the children to sit at their old desks. "So, did anyone learn anything at your other schools?" she asked. Mac raised his hand. "Ooh, ooh, ooh," he grunted. "Yes, Mac," said Mrs. Jules. "Civilization," declared Mac. "What about civilization?" asked Mrs. Jules. "We learned it," said Mac. "Well, that's very impressive," said Mrs. Jules. "Would you like to tell the class something about civilization?" Mac thought a moment. "I don't remember, but I know we learned it." That's good, Mac," said Mrs. Jules. "Anyone else learn anything?" Rhonda raised her hand. "Evaporation," she said. "Good. What is evaporation?" "I don't know," said Rhonda. Dana raised her hand. "I learned about exaggeration," she said. "It was all my teacher ever talked about. We had like 10,000 tests on it, and the teacher would kill you if you didn't spell it right." "Well, that's very good, Dana," said Mrs. Jules. "You learned your lesson well." "I did?" asked Dana. Miss Jules shrugged. "Well, I guess we'll just continue where we left off." It didn't sound like anybody learned really anything. Just then, Mr. Kidswatter's voice came over the PA system. "Good morning, boys and girls." Mr. Kidswatter was the principal. He paused a moment because he thought every kid in school was saying, "Good morning, Mr. Kidswatter," back at him. Nobody said it. Sherry buried her head in her huge coat, closed her eyes, and went to sleep. "Welcome back to Wayside School," said Mr. Kidswatter. "I know I'm sure glad to be back. It was wonderful to see all your bright and chipper faces this morning. I missed every single one of you. And welcome back to Miss Mush, too. Today's lunch menu will be baked liver in purple sauce." Oh, my gosh. Miss Mush actually cooked this before the school was closed, yet she assures me that it's still as tasty as ever. I'm sure it is, said Myron. A safety reminder. Now, it's been a while since you had to rush up and down the stairs, and I want to make sure that there are no accidents. So remember this simple rule. Listen carefully. When you go up the stairs, stay to your right. When you go down the stairs, stay to your left. That way, there should be no problem. Okay, think about it, guys. Okay, let's all have a good day, and remember, I'm your friend, and you're my friends. And if you ever need a friend, you can always come to me. Isn't that nice, said Mrs. Jules. What a bunch of baloney. There I was, lying on a beach in Jamaica when suddenly I get a fax that that dumb school was back open. Well, those kids better not bother me. My friends? Ha! That's a joke. Like I would really want to be friends with those little snot-nosed... What? Don't tell me to shut up. You shut up. What's on? You mean they're hearing what I'm saying right this very second? Well, how do you turn it off? What button? I don't see a red button. There's no red button. Oh, hear it. And that's where we'll stop. And next time, we will go to Chapter 3. Hang on to your hats. You can't believe what's coming up.